going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Wisconsin Sportsman podcast, which is brought to you by Lone Wolf Custom Gear. I'm your host, Pierce Nellis, and this is your home for all things hunting, fishing, and conservation in the Badger State. Folks, I hope you're all doing well. I hope the postseason scouting has been able to maybe distract you from a really ugly, painful Packers loss. I hope we don't see McManus anytime soon, because that sucked. I don't know. I don't have a whole lot to say about that. That one was not fun to watch. But if you have been out in the field, hopefully you've been distracting yourself and soothing the pain with a little time outside there. But you guys, this week I've got Jake Fleischman on the line. I'm stoked to be chatting with him. We're going to be diving into how he killed a hammer of a hill country buck in the Driftless region of Wisconsin here. Before we do that, though, I'm going to try something a little new. I've got a couple of announcements. I'm trying to trim down the advertisement at the beginning there so you guys don't have to listen to a big chunk of ads before we dive into the episode. So real quick, before we dive into this conversation, I'll give a quick shout out to our sponsors, Lone Wolf Custom Gear, makers of the best dang tree stands and mobile hunting equipment you can ask for, really. Like, I ran the 0.5, I ran the V2 doubles this year with some 20-inch 8ers, and the thing that jumped out to me this year was just how nicely everything packed down. Like, it's incredibly modular, so when it's on your back, you're not thinking about it. There's nothing rattling around. It's rock solid when it's on the tree, and you can get into any tree possible. All of that stuff has a lifetime warranty. It's made right here in the U.S., in the Midwest, actually. If you want to check that stuff out, go ahead on over to lonewolfcustomgear.com. We talk about Onyx Hunt all the time as well, and you guys know how much we use that, all the different features, from the tracking tool, which I use almost every time I go out into the woods, to the wind direction tool, slope angle, all my favorite stuff. If you're not an Onyx user yet, Jake, do you use Onyx?
I do.
You use it quite a bit, I would imagine.
I do. I have too many pins to count.
I
get lost in them sometimes.
I'm right there with you. Yeah, I need to take one of their master classes on like organizing pins, because it's just I open my screen, it looks like somebody dumped Skittles all over it. Like, it's it's terrible. But folks, if you're not an Onyx user yet, head on over to onyxmaps.com, get yourself a subscription there and try it out for yourself. You will not regret it, and your eyes will be opened to all the nooks and crannies and little public pieces that are in your neck of the woods that you might not have known about. On top of that, Huntworth Gear. You guys know I'm adamant about Huntworth Gear and just a huge fan of their products. Everything that I've worn this year kept me drier and warmer than I have ever been. And it just works. It's low bulk. The camo patterns are great. I wore the Tarnin in the early season. I wore the Vertec in the early season. That's our new one. I got to test out some of their waterfowl gear this year in their new Oberst pattern, and my late season favorite in their Silent X gear, the Tarnin pattern, was absolutely lights out all the way from the 9-day gun hunt through the rest of the season when I was chasing does around on Christmas Eve. Next, Wisconsin BHA. If you're not a member of BHA, we talk about public land all the time. Jake, are you a public land hunter?
I am.
So you can understand the importance of public lands and advocating for them. As we've seen across the board, on a national level, public lands are kind of under fire right now, and you need people in your corner advocating for the protection and maybe even the expansion of public lands. And the folks over at Backcountry Hunters and Anglers are at the forefront doing that. If you're not a BHA member, I highly suggest you join. In whatever state you're listening from, these guys are fantastic. Some of the coolest outdoorsmen you'll come across, and they're all like-minded individuals pulling in the same direction, fighting for our public lands. And I can't say enough good things about them. And on that note, stay tuned, you guys, we don't have a date ironed out yet, but we'll be doing a Western hunting seminar sometime. Probably it's looking like late February, maybe early March. So if you've ever thought about going out west, but you're not really sure where to start, this is an awesome opportunity to connect with some folks who have done it already, who know the ropes out there, what the tag application process looks like, what the packing process looks like, just getting there and picking the zone, all that sort of stuff. Don't miss that. Stay tuned for more information on that coming down the pipe. And last but not least, you may have saw my post last week. Trout season's here, and I had a pretty dang good day this past Thursday, I think it was. Got a little warm front right before all that weird 1.5 inches of rain that we got for no reason in January. But the trout were grooving, and I had an awesome day hucking streamers and harassing some of those fish. Ended up laying into a nice 17-inch male that was all colored up still from the spawn. It was just fantastic. And if you have not experienced driftless fly fishing yet, I would love to take you. As you all may know, I've got an independent guide business, Good Chance Fly Fishing, and I specialize in walkway trips for trout and even smallmouth in the driftless region. So if you would ever like to try fly fishing or experience that, or maybe you've done it before and you just want to learn a little bit more, or maybe work on a couple of skills there, head on over to goodchanceflyfishing.com. I would love to connect with you. And if you're in the southern part of the state, or maybe you're listening from Illinois, as this comes out this Wednesday, I will be down in Naperville at DuPage Fly Fishing, tying some flies, leading a fly tying class. So I would love to see you there, meet folks in person. But yeah, head on over to goodchanceflyfishing.com. And with that, Jake, I appreciate you listening through the ad section there. I don't know if it was shorter or not. Hopefully it was just easier to listen to maybe than other ones. Folks, send me a message. Let me know your thoughts on what ad structure you'd like. Let's just do it that way. But Jake, how are we doing today, man?
Good. How about you?
Excellent, dude. I'm stoked to be chatting deer with you. Stoked to finally connect. I feel like we're sort of orbiting in the same circles, and just our paths have never actually crossed yet. But dude, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, kind of where you're from and what all you do?
Yeah. So currently I am located in the driftless region, like you said, of Wisconsin, the southwest portion. I don't want to put myself in one spot because I'm usually all over the place. I'm originally from the northern reaches of the state where it's flat, potato fields, not much topography going on whatsoever, dairy farms, and that's pretty much what there is, big forest ground, and moved to this area from there. So flat to the opposite of flat pretty quickly, and it was about 5 years ago now. So it's been a journey as far as just life stuff, and on top of that, hunting is completely different. For the better, in my opinion. So I'm pretty blessed to be kind of in this area and settle down here. So
that's awesome, dude. Yeah, well, I'm stoked to have you on the show. I'm curious, like hunting up north, obviously we've heard all the rumblings of very different deer herd dynamic up there. Hunting in like potato farm country, what was that like? Was it like, were you leveraging the potato farms in any way? Like, did you guys have access to hunt over any, or like, what did that look like for you?
So I'm fairly fortunate because my family owns quite a bit of ground, being
Nice.
an old dairy farm, with a lot of old pasture ground with ag fields mixed in, timber, which isn't very common there. A lot of the area is either very thick, dense woods or swamps in blocks, square blocks per square mile, usually 40s, 80s, 120s of just square timber ground, very flat, and then it goes to field. There's not a lot of, it's either one or the other. Usually not a lot of people own very diverse property where they have a lot of ag and timber together. So it seems like you're kind of sticking to the timber or the swamps. But I didn't hunt a lot of permission ground. I was lucky, like I said, my family owned quite a bit where I could kind of stay there, do my food plot work and kind of hunt that farm. I did, as I get older, you kind of want to branch out a little bit, learn some different stuff. So I kind of transitioned to during rifle season, during deer drives on public land in the bigger woods where I could just roam, cut a track, follow it, spend a whole day out in the woods just doing, you doing you out there. And I kind of gradually started doing more of that as I got older and wanting to learn more, and then kind of moved to this area, and it's been a easy transition because the ground around here is not quite as expansive as there. There's a few more hills, and it kind of sucks walking a little bit more and doing a lot of scouting. It's a little bit more on the boots and on the legs, but it kind of transitioned nicely, I think. Just
Yeah,
my style and kind of getting more into the public land stuff.
totally, dude. That's awesome. I was talking with a buddy earlier this week just about how limiting yourself to just private, I feel like you're doing yourself a disservice, excuse me, by not putting yourself in those situations to do all that roaming, like you said, whether it be just with a rifle in hand and just trying to cut a track and find a deer or something like that, catch up to them, or moving to a new area and just like checking out all the public land and like that's the stuff that is truly trial by fire. And like if you're not picking up on some new skills or picking up new, I mean, really just if you're not picking up on just the patterns of deer through just walking public land, even if that's all you do, I feel like you're doing yourself a disservice because it opens your eyes to all the stuff that you're already missing. I feel like you get stuck doing the same thing over and over and over year after year, and you kind of get blind. You develop like sort of fall into like your comfort zone into your system there. And yeah, it's great when you've got, you know, the perfect win for this one stand on the old 40 or whatever it may be. But being able to be a more dynamic hunter, I guess, and you know, regardless of the win, regardless of the time of year, regardless of the conditions, be able to sort of formulate a game plan that you're at least halfway confident in and throw a sit out there and get more time in the
Yeah.
woods. I mean, that's the best thing you can do at this point. I mean, just as a hunter in general, I feel like, right?
I think the best hunters out there have a little mix of both. You
Hmm.
know, I think it's nice to it just got to a point where, you know the best spots on that property. You have them pretty dialed in after how many years. You know where the deer are gonna come through or where it used certain times a year, and you have those stands preset, and it kind of you're missing out on that, like, adventure, hanging and hunting and moving spots. You can
Hmm.
still do that, and I started to do that even on my own properties or the private that I hunted, but um, just like you said, not there's always something to learn, and it felt like after a little bit, I just wanted to leaving a little bit on the table. Those years where the property just for whatever one reason or another just didn't have the deer you wanted to go after that year, you kind of felt like you're handicapped a little bit, and you just want to go out there and find one at least to chase for the year and keep yourself occupied.
Right.
Learn a little bit
Totally.
during that.
Totally.
So
Yeah, and it's I don't know, man. Before I really even knew about public land, like to the extent that it was or that I did, like I think when you're younger, having that area that you can cut your teeth and you can figure things out and you can sort of like start to like slowly dial in and hone is awesome. But like you said, there were years where we didn't really have a deer that was worth going after or anything. And like it kind of just discourages you. Like if that's your only option, the only place that you're willing to go hunt is one that doesn't have the target that you're after, like you're kind of just like stuck in this weird like deer purgatory for that season until next year. Hopefully another one gets there. You know, who knows? Like somebody else shoots that deer, the neighbor gets it, gets hit by a car, whatever it may be, like that buck disappears. Like it's maddening to have that happen and to not have other options. Like just I don't know, you're backing yourself into a corner.
yeah,
What did the exploration process look like for you upon moving to the Driftless? Like how did that go? Was it kind of like I guess where did you start? Like
yeah,
not location, don't give us a pin, but like
yeah. Um, well, I think it was definitely a learning process for me, and it still is on what sign to really put time into and kinda take as, "Okay, I need to actually care about this or walk past it," because up north, where I'm from, sign is a little bit harder to come by, so you put more eggs in the basket of maybe not as great of sign. Um, for whatever reason, if it's the deer population and the mature buck population not being quite as high, um, I don't know what factors into them laying down sign that way, but it just seems like here where I'm at now in the driftless region, it's much like probably where you're at, where there is more sign and it's bigger,
Mhm.
and it's different in a way that I maybe can't even explain. So being able to filter that out um, and really hone in on a certain type or really boil down the details as like really paying attention to tracks more. Like, is this a track that I can kind of differentiate between maybe an immature buck or a mature buck? Things like that. Certain types of scrapes, which ones I should maybe hang a cam on, and ones that are, made once and never checked again. Rub lines that are paying attention to maybe what time of year they're used versus just here's a big rub or what have you. I think that's been the biggest thing that I've learned to maybe filter that sign a little bit. And I'm still not perfect at it. And it's something that I really focus on, this time of year
Hmm.
when we don't have snow covering everything up. That is, you can still tell rubs and stuff like that. But um, being able to kind of filter that out and dig into them a little bit more has been something I've had to do a lot more of.
Yeah, definitely. Well, it's a totally different game, like you said, going from relatively fat or flat, like heavily wooded northwoods terrain where, yeah, it's like almost, it sounds like it was kind of like a any sign is good sign kind of situation out there where you were just happy to see a rub or happy to find a scrape or whatever it may be too. Now it's like, holy crap, I've got way more sign than I know what to do with right now. How do I filter that through and differentiate some of that stuff? And I'm right there with you. Like I drastically or underestimated, excuse me, looking at deer tracks until about 2 years ago. And after that, like that suddenly, like after I think we're mutual friends with Jacob Splendor. After Jacob told me uh that basically he views every track like a trail cam picture and like framed it in that headspace. I was like, oh, okay. And then later that year, I tracked the same buck all around this marsh and this river bottom property I mean, I'd get in there 3 hours before daylight and just try and find his track and figure out where he was going for that day. And was not nearly as effective as I would have liked to be at doing that. But
Yeah.
yeah, getting into that headspace is a big one for sure. On the note of you mentioned like kind of deciphering different scrapes a little bit. What did that process look like for you? And like what do you look for in a scrape that you're actually gonna give some weight to?
Sure. So I did I mean, I had some conversations with some people, about scrapes early before this season, kind of to get more of an expert opinion, people that I don't run a ton of cameras, like, over scrapes and really, like, collect data on them per se, but I talked to some guys that really have experience doing that, whether they, you know, have money and time invested in a certain product that they run on scrapes, so they just happen to run a bunch of cameras and take inventory on them, and know scrapes very well, is you can kinda tell a lot by I don't necessarily look at the ground as much as like, that's like when you're first starting to pay attention to scrapes and learn and dig into them as a newer hunter, I feel like you just assume the bigger the dirt spot on the ground, the bigger the deer. That's what I was always told when I was younger, and I've kind of threw that out and have really started focusing above the chest and on like the licking branch and paid a lot
Hmm.
more attention to that portion of a scrape. Or the only really thing on the ground that I pay attention to anymore is how deep it is. Like if it's dug into the ground. Obviously, you look for tracks, but a lot of times in certain areas you can't really tell a track very well um, in it. But if it's dug into the ground a little bit, that tells me that it's something that gets used year after year after year, usually, or it's
Right.
getting really hammered that year for whatever reason. Um, but yeah, I kind of focus on the licking branches now to where if it's an area with, like a thicker than your finger licking branch and especially has multiple, those seem to be like depends on the area, but usually those are a community scrape where there's multiple deer using it, whether it's fawns, does, bucks, multiple bucks. It just seems like usually those are in areas that converge terrain wise and that a community scrape you could kind of expect to be there.
Sure.
But like a bigger licking branch with multiple licking branches. And then one thing people don't think about that I've kind of put in some weight in recently in the last couple of years is uh, the type of tree and how fresh it is. Um, like if I happen to find one that is like dead and is like like dead and not going to come back, that licking branch, I don't think a deer necessarily is going to use that for. in the future. I think they might put one nearby, but if that's a good area. But when it's a fresh limb and it's green, I guess. I listened to some other research about those trees giving off some sort of pheromone or something that
That
really keeps that act.
norepinephrine or
Yep,
whatever it is. Yeah,
yep, that keeps it active, and I think that does help. Um, at least for that year, being whether it's a new scrape or it's a tree that keeps coming back and has multiple licking branches, they can use a different one every year or break it off more, and it stays fresh.
hmm
Um, so those are all factors I kind of have been looking more into. Like I said, I'm not an expert in them. It's just little things that I've kind of picked up over the last couple of years that each year I kind of focus a little bit deeper on them.
for sure. Yeah, that's awesome. I totally agree with you about the freshness of the tree, and I've often thought about that. Like, is the well, there's a couple things here. Normally, I just pick one out on the ground, and I'm like, okay, that was active, that, and then I'll look up to the tree. But I like that you're looking at the tree first or the branch first, and then giving the ground some weight and like factoring in the size of like what's the actual, I guess, like scent holding capacity. It sounds like of this branch, and like does the location make sense and everything.
Yeah. I feel
I've
like
always Sorry,
one
go ahead.
thing that I forgot to mention that before I lose it here is like you were talking about looking at the tree first. I feel like a lot of times when I'm like looking at a new area, I can like look ahead or like look around and I can pick out a tree now that I've started to focus on that and say, hey, I bet you there's a scrape underneath that, or that'd be a
hmm
good spot for one based on the terrain or the type of tree, location of the tree. And then you walk up there and either there is or there isn't.
Yep.
Usually it's kind of a kick to the pants when there's not, because that just tells me there's probably not something in here that or a lot of bucks in that area or what have you.
Mm,
But yeah, I feel like you can kind of pick that out before you even see the ground a lot of
Yeah.
times once you get used to doing that.
Yeah, definitely, dude. Yeah, it's like when you get that satisfaction of kind of like calling your shot when you're e-scouting the night before or whatever. Like,
Hmm.
I bet there's going to be something right down here. And yeah, I had that a couple times this summer where I went into a spot and it was like I was 10 yards off the pin that I dropped. I was like, dang it, I was that close. But like, yeah, having those confirmation instances where it just like reinforces your intuition, I guess, is like that's the best, dude. There's and it's like, I don't know. Once you start doing that, like it just helps you because when you're learning, you almost have that almost a little bit of like an anxious feeling when you go in where it's like, I need to absorb everything or else I'm going to miss something. Or it's like you're not efficient with it quite yet. But like once you start getting to that spot where it's like, "Ah, I bet there's a scrape up over there." And then you can like check that one off or like, yep,
Hmm.
it was, but it was old or whatever happened. Like, on the note of the tree freshness there, um, do you find it sounded like maybe you see him to like relocate or whatever, but like, say you've got one of those, finger sized branches, whatever, it's twisted, just totally shredded, ripped apart during the season. Obviously, that, like, say that branch dies or whatever, gets brittle, whatever happens, it's not overhanging, maybe it gets ripped down, something happens. Um, do you see deer reuse that same tree and just go higher sometimes? Or is it more so like you said, just it's the next tree over or two trees over or something like that?
Yeah, I would say a lot of those spots where you find like a really, really good one like that, it's a good spot because of travel and they want
Mhm.
to go through there. And that's why that scrape's there. But a lot of times there's only one great tree.
Right.
Um, so they can only get so high. So I'd say if it breaks off, I see it them they get reused more on a tree where it has multiple overhanging branches where they maybe go side to side, use other ones the next year. Um, or yeah, or they just dry up and they, shift a few hundred yards and just don't
Mhm.
put one there the next year. There are some scrapes that I found that were so active and so good, and I knew the licking branch wouldn't be great the next year where I've like doctored it up to maybe get another year out of it to hopefully hunt it at least the next year based off of the previous year's activity. Because
Mhm.
I figured, okay, I'm probably not going to do this for 10 years and it's probably not going to be good for 10 years, but maybe just squeak a couple good hunts or some better activity the next year out of it by maybe adding a similar. branch of the similar tree type or of that same tree, and just,
Mhm.
you know, in the spring during turkey season or something, just like doctored up a little bit to get like a little bit more life out of it because I know
Yeah,
it's a good spot. In the previous year, if I had a camera on or something, was really good. But typically, they like any good thing, they don't last forever. Usually, you get
right.
one or two, maybe if you're lucky, a handful of years out of a tree, and they kind of shift.
Yeah, for sure. I like that idea of like doctoring up a tree just to get another year out of it or something. I always forget that, it's an option, or I know some guys will take like paracord or something and they'll tie that next branch up, that next, tier, whatever, they'll bend that one down and tie it off or something so it gets back in the same spot just to maintain that one area. And always makes me wonder too. Like obviously the woods are always changing and stuff, but like yeah, like you have a year where that tree for whatever, like the spot was perfect. All the thermals collided down there and mixed into this awesome blend for the deer where they could. It was just a banging hub scrape or something. And then all of a sudden, like, oh, that tree, we don't have a branch that's like adequate to make a scrape on. So they just back off. And it's like, how did you just give up like the best spot in this hub or in this draw
Yeah,
all because you didn't have a branch to lick? Like I get it, but at the same time, like I don't. Maybe I'm sure they still travel through wherever they need to and everything. But
yeah,
yeah, the scrape things it's fascinating because I haven't started to think this is the deepest I've thought about scrapes in quite a while, I think. And
yeah.
so I'm kind of fleshing out ideas as we're speaking here. But yeah, it's just wild that so like okay, let me back up here. On the note of like scrape depth, we talked about that being probably like a perennial powerhouse scrape a little bit. Um, say the branch dries up, but that there's something in the soil there that's just like it's constantly kicked up, it's constantly dug out and everything and used. Like, do you see many ground scrapes in the Midwest? I've heard it like down south, like talking with a couple guys, but I feel like I've never found one in the
Um,
Midwest.
I guess it depends on what you are. You talking like a scrape where there's no trees around, like in the middle of?
Yeah, maybe there's like a bush off to the side, or there could maybe be a tree, but like the branches are all carved out of it or ripped off. Like all they're all just dead from that point out from being used so much.
I think I see that sometimes in like more CRP, like if there's cedars or,
Yeah.
scrapes next to a tree, like I think you're talking about, like if there's no
Mhm.
necessarily overhanging branch. And honestly, those scrapes in the Midwest, those are those scrapes I kind of don't. I mean, if there's a scrape line and they're very fresh, like in the last day, or I can put more pieces together off of that
Right.
is one thing. But as far as like a scrape I would monitor or hunt over, usually I don't hunt over scrapes regardless, but like even put a camera on it and monitor that for a whole year, I probably wouldn't do that because I would just assume those are, a buck was fired up one night or for whatever reason and just made that scrape line or made that scrape and kind of moved on and wouldn't come back necessarily,
Yeah.
at least for a long time. Um, those are kind of what ground scrapes are like if there's not a good overhanging branch with all those factors we talked about. I kind of just, oh, it's nice it's there. There's bucks in the area, but I don't really put too much thought into those ground scrapes or in CRP areas with cedars or bushes or huckleberry or whatever, honeysuckle, or they tear them, they rub them or whatever,
Right.
like on an edge of an opening. You
Yeah.
see them there too when they just get jacked up and they're just ruining everything. Like
Mhm.
they just get like that little in that mood to make a bunch of sign that day. I feel like, and I don't put too much thought into that kind of ground scrape stuff. I don't think.
Yeah, totally. Hey guys, I just wanted to take a quick sec to tell you about Lone Wolf Custom Gear. Lone Wolf Custom Gear is as good as it gets when it comes to mobile hunting equipment. Whether you're a saddle or stand guy, public land or private, Lone Wolf Custom Gear has a set of sticks, a stand, a camera arm, and any number of accessories to get you closer to your target buck. To make it even better, everything is 100% USA sourced and made right here in the Midwest. And it's even assembled right across the river in Iowa by hunters who love chasing deer just as much as you do. To build your kit today, go visit lonewolfcustomgear.com. Now, let's get back to the episode. You mentioned in your scouting process trying to time up and like kind of get an idea on like when rub lines are made and everything. What are you looking for in that regard?
So rub lines specifically, like this last year, opening week of season, I went to check a camera I had soaking all summer in a new spot. And in the process of usually when I check a camera, it depends on when it is during the year. Like if I'm going to pull cameras this time of year that have been soaking all year, I do a little more intrusive like scouting post doing that. As
Right.
long as I'm in there, I like take a weird loop out or somewhere I would never go during season and just check stuff. Um, kind of kill two birds with one stone, I guess you could say. Um, but like in this scenario, it was in August, so I mean, it was season was approaching, and I was going to check a SD card cam I had on a scrape that looked like it was getting hit pretty hard the year prior, and I happened upon a rub line that was like a rub line you would find during the rut, and it was fresh, like end of like post velvet,
Yeah.
like hard horned, like they're not making those kind of rubs on trees like that big, um, unless there's a pretty traveled area, I guess I should say, or at least one buck that was a good
Mhm.
one. And I kind of noted that rub line and then ended up having an opportunity at a buck first hit of the year off hunting off that rub line and not ever, just going based off of that. I feel like as season goes and you get past a couple first weeks of season, at least here, I don't pay much attention to rubs because I just don't think they lay them down as frequently. I feel like
Mhm.
they're kinda more random or like a signpost rub or something or certain areas. You'll get one here and there, but like a really distinct rub line, I feel like happens certain times a year. I put more weight into those really early in the season, like
Sure.
pre-October, and then maybe even later in the year. Like if I'm
Okay.
just gonna camp out in a spot and it's like a very distinct rub line with like big rubs. So it kinda there's a certain time of year and that I don't really put too much weight into rubs or rub lines, but I feel like earlier in the year I've really honed in on rub lines, and that's what I'm like specifically looking for as far as sign early in the year because I think it tells a lot versus a scrape where I just don't like hunting over scrapes for one reason or another. I just have never had good luck with it, and I feel like they're usually in areas that are very very monitored and they
Mhm.
monitor the wind, so you can only really get one hunt in there anyways, and usually the
Right.
access isn't great, so very rarely if you get the right conditions, but I'm really hunting rub lines earlier in the year, you typically.
For sure. Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, because they're like bucks aren't, I guess, throughout October and most of the rut. Like, yeah, they'll lay down an errant rub here and there, but they're the intentionality of making a dedicated rub line, like to reuse that bed day after day after day. Like they're not going to do that every single night, like on their way back to bed. They're just like, oh, let's hit this tree and then hit this tree and then hit, keep going down there towards this point. Like they don't do that every night. Or otherwise the woods would be absolutely just like there wouldn't be a tree in it that didn't have a rub on it.
Their range
And
is a little bit
like
smaller earlier in the year, so yeah,
Total right, it's
they're
smaller and
spending
it's yeah,
more
it's just
time there.
consistent. Exactly, yeah, yeah, I like that strategy a lot for early season and late season when they are on that strict bed to food pattern where maybe they make one of those rubs one night and then 2 days later they make another a little bit further down the trail or like they're just killing time or whatever it may be. I like that strategy a lot, and I think that's a great way to for folks listening to decipher rubs until you find them, like, in that one of those weird staging areas, like, that's one thing, but, like, can you track it back to another spot off of that staging area and so on and so forth. Yeah, that's I like that strategy a lot. That was a really great breakdown. Um, dude, you killed a hammer of a buck this year. Can you tell us a story of how, all that went down? Like, where did it start for that buck?
Um, well, it almost didn't happen because like I said earlier in the year, I don't wanna get too far into that because I've talked about it on, I think, another podcast and then mine also, but, just to preface this, the buck I did kill, the opening week off of that rub line, I missed a really, really good one, so it almost didn't happen, um, but, yeah, I guess I just wanted to throw that in there so I can think about it some more, but yeah. So that was opening week, and it was I didn't really hunt much, in
Mhm.
between that opening week here. We had unseasonably cool weather, middle of that first week, which I hunted mornings then and had some pretty good hunts. Um, and then it got warm, and I just with my schedule early mid October just wasn't isn't great for me because I try to get a lot of stuff done then. So kind of before that and after that, I have a little bit more time to hunt. So um, yeah, after that I kind of just started, middle of October, starting to hunt more, going back, checking areas that I've hunted previous years, had camera intel, um, and I've kind of learned over the last few years, different areas get better certain times a year with pressure as it comes in. It kind of changes the whole dynamic. After those first couple of weeks in September, everything kind of changes, deer shift. So, um, it's I didn't really have I wasn't out ahead of anything to like catch them shifting into an area to where I really wanted to be hunting that early October when they kind of are all everything's kind of changing. So I kind of just steered clear because I knew, come late October, early November, I had a handful of spots where I knew there was some really good deer frequenting. And my plan, honestly, every year as I try to like wipe the slate clean and kind of re break down every spot,
Mhm.
I kind of look at it in areas like this area and these three pieces of property in this area I want to focus on, but I don't have like necessarily I'm going to hunt this tree on this wind. I mean, there are some, don't get me wrong, that I find that I want to throw a hunt at here at like certain times a year, but kind of try to wipe everything clean and go in with a fresh mindset each year to a spot. Like I know I want to focus here. There's good deer here. I know it from previous year. And then I kind of get a certain date range. Like I know these, and most of it's based off a rut or, estrus cycle of does in the area. I kind of base that off of, okay, I know there's going to be some does in heat in this area these 5 or 6 days. So I'm going to focus here and kind of like hunt my way in. Um, and kind of just break them down brand new each year. And I had been hunting a area that I from people that I know that have run cameras in there and hunted there last year. I know a guy killed a really nice one, uh, November 3rd or 4th last year. I kind of wanted to focus there the last few days of October and kind of catch it while the iron was maybe hot before everybody takes their first week of November off. And I had some
Mhm.
good encounters with some younger bucks. Didn't really one morning I had a really nice one, like, before it was even light out, like, run past my base of my tree. So, I mean, they were there. I just, I had another borderline buck on I think it was at that point, I was hunting that same area. I just kinda wanted to put a lot of time into it because I knew if I was, you know I knew I needed to be there that time frame. I wasn't
Mhm.
really getting things as dialed in as I would have liked. I was kinda just waiting on the deer coming to me versus vice versa, how I usually am, which was uh, a little odd for me this year. I don't know why exactly, but
Well, it's
um,
tough to do that time of year. Like,
yeah,
it can be so random. Like, that's when the randomness of the rut truly kicks in. It's
that's
like
like my biggest thing is like talking myself out of moving or adjusting. Like, hey, just sit
Mhm.
tight. It could happen at any time. But at the same time, I've had really good luck bouncing around a lot. So, after a few days of seeing a lot of small bucks, nothing I really wanted or feeling like I was just kind of spinning my tires. I started hunting maybe the 26th-ish of October. Not every day, like when I could. So it wasn't like it was like 2 weeks
Mhm.
straight, but here and there, getting some encounters. I think every hunt I'd see something with, horns. Just nothing great other than that buck that was before shooting on, I think that was November, one of the first couple days of November. Um, and then at that point, I hunted like 3 days in a row in that same spot, just moving, point to point, area to area, different pinch points that I figured bucks would, be moving through scent checking, doe bedding and stuff. And had a borderline buck. I want to say it was the fifth, sixth, maybe even the seventh. uh, come up in the morning and he bedded like 30 yards from me. And I like had a lot of time to look at him and like, yeah, is it something I really want to shoot? Like I still have a week left to hunt. I don't know. Like I've been seeing bucks every day. This is the nicest one I've seen thus far, other than the one early season that I missed. And I was like really contemplating, like I had my bow in my hand, ready to draw on him when he stood up, and he just bedded for so long and I just looked at him so much, had him ranged like as soon as he stood up, 30-yard shot, broadside, and I just talked myself out of it.
Hmm.
Because I knew the caliber of deer that were around, and I mean this deer is probably, I don't hate to put numbers on deer, and I suck at judging, but maybe like 120 inches as
Hmm.
like a nine point. He was a young, you could tell he was like a very young deer, but like
Yeah.
nice, good genetics. And I decided to pass on him. He stood up and kind of worked off. And at that point, I was kind of like, had one of those moments like on the drive home, like, well, what am I doing? Like, I need to do something different. I'm like, I know it's anything can happen early
Hmm.
November, but like, I should be seeing, they're somewhere. The mature bucks are somewhere. I need to, find at least one to kind of put my time into. And so I kind of just went to a new spot. I went to the spot where I had the most bucks on camera, in the summer. So I knew that they'd be back through there at some point. I'm like, I'm just gonna go in, sit between my goal that it would have been, I think November 8th is the day I killed my deer. So the previous day was the one I passed up that one on the 7th and kind of had like a reevaluated my approach and what I was doing. And I was like, I'm just gonna keep doing what I've been doing the last few years and just bounce around. Like every sit, I'm going somewhere different. Um, like sit till midday in the morning and then bounce, go
Hmm.
somewhere else in the afternoon, or even just walk around in the afternoon and try to walk up on something with a buck and a doe or some way just cover ground. Um, so on the 8th, I picked the spot where in the summer I had like an absurd amount of bucks, like in velvet, like on a certain scrape. And I I was like I was kind of getting to the point where I'm like, I want to be lazy today, but like when I woke up, like I had a really long walk and up and over a couple different ridges, and it's like I don't know if I want to walk that far. Like it was I'll be honest, I was kind of being lazy, but it kind of bit me in the butt because I was like, okay, I'm gonna access from this other side of this property because I knew where I wanted to be, like based off a map. And I was gonna sit like at the head of a drainage in between two what I thought was doe bedding points and try to catch, some cruising movement midday. My plan was to sit in this spot all day, which is something I hadn't been doing. And so I'm like, that time of year, you just need to be in the tree. And I'm like, okay,
Hmm.
I'm gonna pick a spot, sit there all day. That was the goal. And I get to the other side of the property that I've never accessed for before, never even like contemplated it other than the night before on a map. I'm like, well, the distance is about 1/10 as far, but it's also 10 times as steep. And I have no idea what it looks like. And I'm going to be doing it in the dark. So I get there, get all my stuff packed up. And like at this point, I'm like, oh, it's not going to take that long because it's a tenth of the distance. I'm like, I'm big and
Yeah.
bad. I can climb anything. And I kind of didn't take into account like how steep things are in this area and if it was even possible. So it's I kind of took my time driving there. You sipping your coffee, like, oh man, this is going to be an easy access up in the tree all day. Like, I'm not going to burn myself out. I'm not going to rush to the woods. It's whatever. And that was probably the worst access I've ever had in my life. It was like 400 feet of elevation and like 300 yards distance.
Jeez.
So it was like a absolute cliff. Like you're grabbing trees to pull yourself up. And I
Yep.
tore up my knees super bad, ripped holes in my pants. Like, cause I was walking up this drainage to get to like the head of it where it peters out
Hmm.
at top on the top. And that's right where I was going to sit. I was going to try to find a tree and there was hardly any wind that day. So my plan was the wind was good for those bedding points for those does to be bedded, but it wasn't. there was no wind hardly at all that whole day. So I was like, I'm gonna sit my back to this ditch at the head of it, and like all my wind, and it was overcast, so everything should be relatively subtle and dropping most of the day, at least until midday, and it'll all be going right back down the ditch where I walked up. And that was the plan. I'm grabbing trees, I'm sliding, I'm like cussing, like I'm like, there, I'm not gonna. I get to the very top, and it's late because it took me forever, and I didn't even think I'd get up there. I'm, panting, I'm soaking wet, I'm
Yep.
tore up. I'm like, this sucks.
It's
And then,
15 minutes till, first light. It's like,
yep.
"Ah."
And then I got to get set up and take all my clothes off and put them back on because it was going to get a little chilly.
Mhm.
So it was like that whole animal. And I get set up and it's already like 15 minutes past shooting when I'm set up and made a bunch of noise. So like it didn't start out great. Um, but that didn't really last long because there's not really much to the story. There's more to it once uh, the action starts. But up to that point, other than me get my butt kicked on my access, not too much going on there. But I didn't have high hopes. I'm like, at this point, I get all my stuff set up and I'm texting my buddies in our group chat, like, this was a mistake. Like, I suck at hunting. This, like, why would I, like, you're pretty,
Yep.
I was just being negative, you know?
Mhm.
You get to that point in the year and you're like, man, I only have like a handful of more days and my season could be done. And you're kind
Right.
of just getting pessimistic. And um, yeah, I'm in the middle of a text message. I look up and see, I didn't know exactly what it was at first, but I was closer to one of the betting points than the other. Like it was probably 100 yards to my right was one. It was super thick. And then a few hundred yards to my left. But that's where they kind of pinch down to get across that from one to the other, probably
Mhm.
30 yards above me. And as it got light, I forgot to mention this too. I was kind of like surveying, as you do, you start ranging trees. Um, as soon as you can see, kind of get that sorted out. And I seen like three really, really fresh rubs, like big trees shredded that were fresh, right where I thought that they would kind of cross this ditch. And I was like, okay, that get my confidence went up a couple notches just because that's where they're going to cross if they're going to, and that's my shot.
Mhm.
So at least I have that figured out. Like that's where they're going to go. Um, I pulled my camera there in this area before the season even started, even though I had all those bucks on it because it was a new area to me this past year in the summer. So I kind of was like, I just want some inventory and I'll maybe come back and hunt it. And this was the first time in there. Um, and then, like I said, I'm in the middle of a text message. I look to my right and I see, or I think I heard first, like that sound where, you can get really thrown off between a squirrel, a coyote, a deer. Usually when it's a quick shuffle, it's like a coyote or a squirrel running. It's not necessarily a deer. There's like a different, it's hard to explain until you like hear it a bunch, but
Yeah,
I,
it's not as sharp. Yeah.
it's not hoofed imprints like a deer walking necessarily. It was more of like a trot.
Mhm.
So I thought right away it was like a coyote. So I like grabbed my bow just because I thought like if he'd come through or whatever. And then pretty soon I seen like it was a deer. Like it was pretty obvious it was a deer. It was a doe. And she was like trotting. And I was like, oh, this time of year, that's a good sign. She's going right
Mhm.
down through that pinch and she like stops and just starts like looking around 360. Like if you've
Yeah.
hunted long enough that there's a buck close by or going to come through there eventually. She's trying to get away from something or very hyper vigilant, like just based on her body language, you could tell. Um, so then I'm really focused behind her, uh, and I heard a grunt. So then that confirmed my suspicions. I couldn't see him yet. Um, and then she started working through that pinch, and I'm like, okay, so I didn't see anything to my right. I was making sure that they weren't like looking at me, getting picked off or whatever. And then when she started working through that pinch, I'm like, grab my rangefinder and I'm really ranging her because I'm like, whatever comes through is going to come right on her trail. So I need to know
Mhm.
what that range is. So I get it ranged, and that trail that goes across was further than I thought. Um, and it was like 36 yards. and I was at a pretty sharp, decline. So I was essentially the deer were above me at 36
Oh,
yards. So
weird.
it was kind of a long distance. It was like at eye level, but even a little bit. There's kind of a bench there, and
Mhm.
it was like even above me.
Yep.
So the doe seemed like she was like very large, just because it's like right there eye level. You're not
Right.
30 feet above it. She in all reality, it wasn't a very big doe, but it very if you didn't have a rangefinder and you were like guessing yardage, that scenario could have been like very problematic, I think, for most people
Right. Yeah.
with the depth perception and everything.
Yeah,
So
well,
I'm
even
glad
just
I
having
like
the upward angle, like, that
yeah.
gets people a lot of folks, like, if you shot 3D, like, you start throwing the geometry of it all in there and the physics of your arrow flight and everything, like, you start trying to do the math of, like, "Wait, what do I actually need to set my pin at for this?" Or, like, I don't know. It's
Yeah,
sketchy.
it's like one angle you don't practice is above you usually.
Right, exactly,
Yeah.
yeah.
But, yeah. So I get a range on this doe, and then she, like, starts going up the other side hill, and I'm like, "Okay, this deer's gotta be, like," I heard him grunt, "He's gotta be not far." So I'm, like, really ready. I'm, like, ready to draw on this spot I have range because he's gonna come through. And then I'm, like, hyper focused on where I heard the grunt, and it was, like, super far to my right. And then I catch movement, like, way above this drainage, like, on the skyline of this ridge, and I see,
Mhm,
like, this huge cage, like, a area that I never even like, there's definitely 2 bucks now because I heard the grunt over here, and then I see this buck way above. And then I didn't even at this point, I have my bow in my hand, I can't, like, get out my binos or anything, and he's far enough away. You could just tell he was, like, a really, really big deer. I'm like, "Man, that's not good." He's, like, way above where I thought he'd be. Um, but I knew there was another buck to the right. So I kind of and then this buck way up top starts, like, going towards her. I'm like, "Okay, I'm probably not gonna get a shot at him. That sucks. Hopefully, it's not the one I heard." Um, so I kind of ignore him. So I don't even really know put too much thought into, like, how big this other deer is because I kinda like, "Okay, you can go. I'm focused on this grunt I heard. This is my only chance of a deer coming in range." So then I start focusing, shifting my body that way, getting ready to shoot a little bit more that way. And then he makes himself known. Then I hear a snort wheeze, which was kind of cool to hear.
mhm,
I don't know if these bucks were going at it or they're fighting over this doe or what the deal was, but
mhm.
he snort wheezes. I'm like, man, he's right there. But he was behind a big tree and I couldn't see him.
It's
So I'm
like when
like,
a
okay,
turkey spits and drums, it's, like, behind you,
yeah,
and it's like, "Whoa, he's close, holy smokes." Like
yeah. It like scared me a little bit, but it was cool to hear that. And so I'm like, then I'm focused on this big tree that he's behind because I could tell that he was right there. And he was closer than I thought. Like he was closer than that 36 yards or whatever it was.
Mhm,
Um, so I'm kind of like, oh, hopefully he's not like super close where I don't. You can get thrown off too if the deer's like super close and comes right on top of you. You like don't know what to do, where to aim because he's like on top of
mhm.
you. So I was like kind of hoping that didn't happen either.
Are you
Um,
shooting a single pin or a multi?
3-pin slider.
Okay, gotcha.
So I wouldn't, as long as he came pretty much from that where that doe went through anywhere from about there or a little bit further close to me, I wouldn't have
Mhm,
to dial anything in or redial it
sure.
in. Uh, but then, yeah, and then I seen like half of his body, and then all of a sudden he like takes off trotting like straight away from me, back up towards where this other buck is. I'm like, he better not go way up there, otherwise he's gonna be out of range.
Mhm,
It's probably like 80 yards up the hill, and so, like, a last ditch effort, I'm like, "There's no way I can let both of these bucks come through just like this, or that doe," and I didn't forgot to mention this too, is that doe squatted and peed, like, right in my shooting lane, right when I was ranging her at 36 yards. So I'm like, "They have to go right here." Like, I was dead
right.
set, "They have to go through here," or another buck had to, if he cruises
Yep.
through here after that, would come right there. Um, and there's rubs on either side of this lane right there. I'm like, there's bucks coming through here at some point. So I was pretty confident that's where they would come through. Um, but he starts going away from me and I'm like, I can't let him get there. Like I need to do something. So then I grunted, like just with my mouth, like not, it wasn't good, but he like stopped. and like didn't know where it came from. Looks both ways, and then he makes a scrape right there. Like I can just watch him making a scrape, and he's like going nuts. So I'm like, yeah, these bucks are definitely fighting over this doe.
Yep.
And or he at least he's okay with that other big one, but he thinks I'm a smaller buck or something, and he just getting
Hmm.
really mad. And that was kind of my goal. Then I'm like, okay, he's in that aggressive mood. I need to either keep him where he's at, and hopefully he comes into my lane from there or comes closer or something. So he's done making the scrape, and then he starts like slowly walking up towards that buck again. And then I decided to snort wheeze. That's one thing you can do with your mouth pretty decent. Grunting's another
Right.
thing.
Yep.
So that's like my last ditch effort usually is a snort wheeze. It's like either a
Hmm.
buck's in the mood and they'll commit to it, or a younger buck's it'll scare him off or something.
Hmm.
But did that. Um, yeah, he did not like that at all. Um, and he like started turning and he crossed my lane, but he crossed or started crossing my lane, but it was further than that doe was. Like he was behind the tree that I arranged behind her.
Hmm.
So then I kind of had to do a little bit of like last second math. Like, do I need to dial my sight or whatever? But I really need to draw right now. So I really don't have time to do both.
Yep.
So it was one of those things where I drew and had to compensate with I put my 40-yard pin and I thought he was right at about 38 yards. I pretty much put my 40 on his heart or bottom of the belly, um, thinking that he was kind of preoccupied. He wouldn't like, it's something I do now is like try to figure if the deer's going to drop at all. And that's
Hmm.
like super last minute. Like usually you don't even think about that, but I had a lot of time to kind of think about that. And it crossed my mind. So I'm like, I don't think he's going to. He's not like alert or scared or whatever. So I
Right.
put my 40 like right. I wouldn't miss him if I hit right where I was aiming, but like pretty low.
Yeah.
And he was like walking, and I'm like trying to stop him, like making a bunch of noises, but he was like, doing that like bristled up kind of like walk. He didn't really care to stop,
Hmm.
but he stopped at the last second where his head was behind a tree to my left, but his pretty much leg and all the vitals and stuff are still, open.
Yep.
Um, Punched off a good shot. I shouldn't say punch, executed a good shot. And I hit him like height wise perfect, but it seemed a little bit far back. But it slapped the side of him, and you hit the diaphragm. You hear that like release
Just
of
pop.
air.
Yep.
Yep. So I heard that. So I felt good right away, and he like took off up over the hill towards where that doe went. He actually took off up and over closer to like right up. There's like access trails on the top of the ridges. So
Hmm.
thank God he went up. And I was like, man, what are the odds of that he goes in like a good spot?
Right.
Um, but yeah, it takes off, and like just me being me, I was very hesitant to say like pat myself on the back and whatever. Like I
Hmm.
was just at a loss for words at that point because it happened so fast. And I've had bad luck the last few years, like having things happen that maybe are even out of my control or just missing deer or screwing up opportunities. And so it was hard for me to like say, hey, I think you actually like made a good shot or have confidence that you got him without knowing
Yep.
or seeing the arrow or blood or anything.
Right.
So I'm like calling people like, I don't know, what do you think? And being that person for other people, I know that they can tell nothing based on what I'm probably saying. They
Hmm.
didn't see the shot, they didn't see the arrow, but they're like, "Oh, based on everything you said, it sounds like he's dead or whatever." And I'm like, "Yeah." My plan was to go look at that point for the arrow, look for blood, and I was gonna back out because I had to go back down that. I wasn't ready to drag him down that hellhole I tried to climb up. So I was like, at best, I'm gonna find my arrow in blood, mark it, go back to the truck, loop around, and come in from the top, the long
Hmm.
way I was not willing to walk that morning, where he kind of
Right.
ran. And as soon as I went up, I found my arrow, and I mean, there was blood sprayed on both sides of where he took off. And I mean, you could look 30 yards up the hill and you could see blood. And I'm like on the
That's
phone with,
awesome.
I don't know if you're familiar with Tony Van Asten at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I was actually on the phone with him, and he was hunting. He hunts, somewhat that area. We've been in contact the last year or so. I
Hmm.
just, bounce bounce stuff back and forth with each other. And he's always said, like, if you kill one, I'm probably going to be down here this time of year. You need help getting one out or have any questions, call me. So I was like on the phone with him and my buddies are like, yeah, dude, he's dead. Like, just go get him.
Yeah.
Like, there's no sense in waiting at this point. Like, you've waited long enough, like, whatever. So that gave me a little bit of confidence and just
Did you
slowly.
have like delayed buck fever a little bit? Like, did you have the immediate jitters? Because like I can absolutely relate to you in the like doubt of when that arrow is released and like the buck, like the one that I shot this year, same thing. Wasn't stoked at all until I got to the arrow and saw it was painted, and then my legs started shaking. Like, did you have that?
Uh, I would say I am that way though. Like, I don't get too worked up in the moment or before, and then I kind
Mhm.
of get like, I say all my jitters come out like right after the shot. Like
Yep.
everything, I'm a pretty like, I don't get too worked up about most stuff, just
Hmm.
regardless of what it is. But I'd say it all comes out like right away, and then by the time I'm down there looking at the arrow in the blood, it's kind of like at that point, it's out of my control now. Like the shot's
Right.
gone. Either it's a good shot or bad shot. So I kind of just have to. At that point, my mind kind of shifts to the tracking aspect of everything. Like I don't want to
Hmm.
go too far. I don't want to bump them. Like be
Right.
super cautious until I don't have to be. Like I'm super super cautious when it comes to tracking and stuff. Even if it's a great shot, I'm like my first instinct is just to like go back to the truck
Yep.
and just figure it out later.
Which is a good
Um,
thing, honestly. Like,
yeah,
unless you see it tip over, it's probably best to just go back, regroup, and
yeah.
go back in with clean eyes.
Yeah. But yeah, eventually I had to be talked into going to, you know, continuing the track by multiple people. And so I kind of just really slow, had an arrow nock the whole time because I'm not taking any chances. I'm just going super, super slow. And then I kind of sped up as I went because like the blood was like really good. And then I went up over the hill. I actually crossed the access path. All those deer crossed the main access path. Um, got to the other side. Um, and it was kind of surreal because uh he like went out on this little like flat point and there was a down log and he had died like right next to that big log and his like rack was laid up on the log and at this point it was getting bright enough out to where like he's silhouetted out over this big
Oh,
drainage as you're walking up to him. And I'm like, I stopped. I didn't even run up to him right away or walk up to him. I
mhm.
like stopped as soon as I seen that. And I like just stood there for like a minute. And I'm like,
Yeah.
man, this like it could not, you could not have gotten like it could have went on a Christmas card, whatever you want, or in a
Yep.
book. I'm like, this is awesome. So I'm just gonna soak this in for like a minute.
Totally.
Cause then after that, like all the work starts. I'm like, then it shifts to how you getting this deer out of here, all this make phone
Mhm.
calls, all this stuff. I'm like, I just want to take a minute and like appreciate this. Cause like it's almost like he died like that for a reason, almost like, "Here you go.
Mhm.
Like, you've had a lot of crappy things happen the last few years, and, like, everything, here's your gimme," or, like,
Yep.
you know what I mean? Like, it's almost like it happened that way for a reason. So I kinda, soaked that moment in a little bit, and just a perfect early November morning. Like, the rutting
That's all.
activity, I mean, it couldn't get any better than that, hearing a snort wheeze, watching chasing,
Mhm.
all that right away in the morning like you dream about, so, um,
Had every element of a perfect hunt. Had
yeah.
an absolute shit access that was just making you doubt everything. And then it had red hot sign, crazy buck activity, a hot doe coming. Like that's it
Yeah,
checked all the boxes. That's awesome, dude.
100%.
Dude, did you get a picture of that buck while he was like laid up and his rack was silhouetted and everything? Or I'm sure it
I
wouldn't do it justice. Or
I took a few photos and I'll
Mhm.
send them to you afterwards of him pretty much in the position that I saw him, but it wasn't as
Mhm.
good because they were like up close to him. It was
Oh,
like
sure. Yeah.
when you first seen him at ways, and then after that, I didn't even really think about taking pictures. That's when I was like gonna walk up to him, and I didn't take
Mhm.
any pictures until I was like there, put my hands on him and stuff. So
Yeah. Dude, that's awesome. That's so sick. And like to have that after okay, so was it like in years past, has it been primarily just like terrible track jobs or like losing
uh
deer? Like what was it that the
so,
adversity in years past?
so yeah, it's been like a 2 year. thing anyways. All my friends know it pretty well, and I've talked about it a little bit, but like last year was very, very rough. Just things almost out of my control. I shouldn't say out of my control because I took them as my like I tried to fix things after the season because you just take it on upon yourself like, hey, I could
Mhm.
eliminate this to eliminate that from happening. But last year I missed a. I'm not good at judging deer, but he was like over 170 inches, like just an absolute magnum at 25 yards and hit a stick,
Oh
deflected
no.
my arrow, and then that same day actually I moved spots for the afternoon and rattled in like another nice buck that I hit and never found, and I tracked for like 3 days. Um, so then that was my season in a nutshell last year, and then this year, missing a really good deer that I didn't expect to get an opportunity early season this year, but missed that one this year. So, 3 misses in a row on really good deer. I'm kinda, just
That gets in your head a little bit.
this year, the one early season this year was my fault because my bow was off. So, I mean, you could
Mm,
say equipment, but I didn't shoot it as much as I should have, like, during the season or pre-hunt.
mhm.
I kinda just dialed it in the summer and said good enough, but
Yeah,
whether it got bumped off from whatever, um, but yeah, so 1 for 4 in the last 2 years, I guess, but yeah, it's just kind of been a grind until, finally everything working out how I
mhm.
plan it to work out, when you get an opportunity.
Totally, dude. That's awesome, man. And like that, I feel like having those struggles and missing deer and stuff. Like I feel like we were running like parallel seasons almost, like the past year or so. It sounds like, and just missing deer and overcoming the mental hurdles of gear malfunctions or missed shots or whatever it may
Mhm.
be. Like, how did I guess I'm curious now after having the success, like I'm assuming last year your postseason scouting, your preseason scouting, like your prep, like was elevated a little bit. Heading into 2026 now, with this successful hunt under your belt, what's the mindset? Is it still full steam ahead just like last year? Are you going to tweak anything or do more of one thing? Like what's your postseason mindset looking
Um,
like now?
so I guess my outlook on next year is I don't wanna change too much as far as the actual hunting and my approach that way because I feel like
Mhm.
there's not been a lack of opportunities for me. I don't like I said, I'm no expert. I'm not by any means have anything figured out. It just helps being in an area with a good deer population and, you know, what have you, but, um, I think most of my changes for next year, my outlook is gonna change based on equipment, physical fitness, things that I can control. So,
Totally.
like, not necessarily any hunting related tactics or different
Mhm.
things I wanna do. Just breaking down certain properties more this time of year, dialing in my camera locations as far as inventory. Usually I pick 1 or 2 spots new to me to soak a camera that I don't even plan on hunting, which this spot that I killed on was that for me this year. Didn't plan on hunting it, just wanted to get that intel on what's in the area, and then
Mhm.
if I am struggling, maybe hunt it, at some point. But yeah, I would say my changes for next year are just gonna be, like, get in the best shape I can possibly get in and be prepared to hop around a lot, keep doing what I'm doing and dial in my gear more, shoot more during the season, preseason, making sure my saddle setup and my bow setup and everything is just dialed to a T that I don't have to worry about that. I can just go and go and hunt. So
Yeah, totally. Yeah, the more variables you can remove or the more uncertainties you can remove. And
yeah.
like you said, like controlling what you can control so that the only uncertainty you have to worry about is those deer coming through and just deer being deer and you can just focus on that rather than second guessing your setup or your gear like shoot like am I actually last time I shot in the backyard it was a little squirrely like am I going to bring that
Yep.
into the woods with me to like all that sort of stuff like put your mind at ease and it makes the entire experience significantly more enjoyable when you're not worrying about all that ancillary stuff, dude.
Yeah.
But man, that's awesome. I'm stoked to see what happens for you here in 2026. And I mean, congrats on just again an absolute freaking hammer of a buck in the driftless there, because that's
Yeah. Appreciate it.
not easy, man. Like it is
No,
not
it's
easy
not.
country to hunt. I mean, whether it be the access, like you said, or the just finding a deer. And it's one thing to find, oh, I found that scrape. Like the hub scrapes are going to be in the hubs. The field edge scrapes are going to be on the field edge, that sort of stuff. But like figuring out the the in between of like, okay, I found all this sign. Now what do I do with it? And like having those questions, or building theories and kind of putting that puzzle together is significantly easier when you're not second guessing yourself or anything like
Yeah.
that. So,
Yeah.
uh,
I'd say just to like wrap a bow on the whole sign thing. I know we talked about a lot
yeah.
earlier, but like to tell you the truth, a lot of the areas I've had encounters with my biggest bucks, there's a lack of sign.
Hmm.
So I don't like anybody listening that's newer to, whether it's hill country or kind of the same scenario or what have you, don't take sign for like 100% of everything either. Because like there's also another step on top of that to where we talked about differentiating what times of year sign's important. And like that sign that was where the buck I killed this year, that was fresh sign. Like if I was in there 2 weeks prior, that wouldn't have been there. I would have thought there's nothing there. But like when monitor an area and the sign pops up right then, maybe take that into a little bit more consideration. Or, I just don't put too much thought into it because, like I said, a lot of the areas I've had my best encounters, like you could walk around for half a day and not find much sign at all and think there's no deer there. So um,
Yeah,
it's a very
totally. With
complicated
that,
thing.
yeah, it's all paradoxical, right? It's like, oh,
Yeah.
you got to find the hot sign. Well, but don't hunt all the hot sign. It's got to be
Yeah.
just cool enough that a big buck would have done. Like,
Yep.
yeah, dude, it's that's the fun of the game, right? And by if I were to follow that rule, I've got a spot that I scouted on Halloween this year that the sign was not like in terms of scrapes and rubs and stuff, there was like one scrape kind of at the head of this big drainage. But like in hindsight, now that I'm thinking, I'm kind of just sort of picturing a couple spots as you were telling that story and like what the access looked like and like in between these two bedding points and everything. Like I've got a spot that I am now itching to go check out like
Yeah.
immediately to see
Like,
if it ended up actually heating up over the course of the week.
yeah, my best hunts have been, and majority of encounters have been areas to put it in a little bit better wording, is areas adjacent to that hot sign. Because that hot sign's in an area that the terrain makes sense. Like you're saying at the head of a drainage, there's going to be a scrape there just because that's where a lot of deer frequent and cross. But hunting adjacent areas to that might not have that sign right there, but areas that your access is bulletproof
Yep.
and you can hunt it multiple times and you could see a buck monitoring that area with hot sign because he's old and mature for a reason. He's not going to frequent an area that sticks out like a sore thumb.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah.
Definitely, that's the hot tip. Well, dude, you kind of teased it a little bit. You got a podcast yourself, The Untrained Outdoorsman. Can you tell us a little bit about that and where folks can go to check that out?
Yeah. So that's been a new venture for me, I guess. I've kind of made some connections in the space between, the partners I have and some of the companies uh that I use. And I'm kind of a person that, I don't promote things on my personal channels that I don't use or believe in, or people that I don't believe in or care for, or things like that. Like things I share and things I put on my social media. Like I truly believe that person's a stand up guy. I like what they're behind, or
Mhm.
I get along with somebody, a personal friend or what have you. And I was starting to have like in depth conversations with people that other people consider experts in the space in certain areas, or I've just become friends with them and talk in depth with them either on a phone call or text message. And I'm like, hey, why don't I just I consume podcasts. I consume, yours or whoever else is hunting related. Anytime I'm in my car, I don't listen to music. Usually it's podcasts. So I'm like, I kind of know what people maybe want to hear or have a little bit of an idea. I consume it. So I can maybe contribute for someone else. And why not sit down and record those conversations with people that, are fun to listen to, have stories. I have my own stories. Like some of the podcasts we do are just me and my buddies that just after a weekend of hunting together, we just like break down what went on.
Yeah.
No goal to it. No, like I'm not trying to preach at people. I'm no expert in any sense of anything. It's just kind of like tell stories. If you can take something away from it, um, that's kind of what I do it for, is just to kind of put my conversations with people out there. So indirectly people could either consume it for entertainment, or learn something indirectly from it. Um, and yeah, it's kind of a new thing. I've only been, doing it for a couple months, but plan on continuing to keep that going if I can. Um, Continue to try to get people on people want to hear from. I'm sure a lot of, you're very versed in it. You've been doing it for a while.
Mhm.
You do a good job, and um, I'm not trying to like, get anything out of it other than, you know, just put it out there for people.
Mhm.
If people like to listen, they like to listen. If they don't, they don't. I'm sure you kind of have the same mindset. Like I do it more for me than anything. Uh, a release to get everything out there in your head, and uh, some people will kind of latch onto it, and some won't. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's called the Untrained Outdoorsman Podcast. I put the video versions out on YouTube. Not like a lot of that really matters to see my face blabbering, but it's on Spotify and Apple too, if you listen to the audio version. Um, and then we're in 2026, we're planning on doing a little bit more video on the YouTube page, just
Awesome.
whether it's like bow setups or gear setups, some stuff that people hear in the videos or the podcasts and maybe want a visual. I know it's kind
Mhm.
of hard to hear something and not see it. So if you know if we get feedback that someone wants to hear or see visually about a topic or about a hunt or something, we're gonna do better about putting some more videos up on the YouTube page. So
Awesome. Hell yeah, dude. That's sick. Yeah, I totally relate to you and the abundant consumption of podcasts. And it's like that. I'm sure you do the same thing. You listen to a podcast with somebody, and then it's like, oh, I would have asked this, or like he touched on this, but I want to know more. And then you can
Mhm.
kind of dive in and ask that sort of stuff, because you got to imagine that like we're not the only ones asking that question, or we're not, if there's something that didn't quite click or that we missed that like we got kind of brushed over, it's like, well, wait a minute, what about this? Like, yeah, at the end of the day, like everybody, I feel like, whether it be for entertainment or education, like if you can leave folks with something to take with them and either think about, or
Yeah.
maybe that's all they do is just think about it, or if they can take it into the woods with them and all of a sudden they have that light bulb moment, like all the better, right? Like that's the best. But yeah, folks, definitely go check out the Untrained Outdoorsman podcast. You can find that on whatever platform you're listening to this on. So go do that. And man, Jake, this has been fantastic, dude. I am seriously, I'm so stoked that we got a chance to connect and finally, and record this one. And I look forward to hopefully doing some again in the future, man.
Absolutely. I'll have to have you on my platform, and we'll talk
Yeah,
some more deer, but I appreciate you having me on. Like I said, big fan of your podcast and do a good job. So it was a pleasure
appreciate
sitting
it,
down talking deer. It's got the juices flowing already. It's not even
dude.
turkey
Right.
season yet, and I'm thinking about next year's season. So
Yeah, no, I feel you there, man. This got me really, really itchy to go get out in the woods, especially like it's kind of warm today, and I think tomorrow's supposed to be like 50 as well. Like,
yep.
yeah, it's gonna be a good day to hit the woods. But dude, good luck in 2026, man, and we'll talk to you soon.
Yep. Thank you.